Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
We just bragged so much on everything and everybody to Ms. Childress that we ran over a little bit, and we hope that wasn't a big inconvenience.
No, it was fine. And thanks to everybody for being so welcoming. I appreciate that. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
So, is it okay to have water?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You can go ahead and get you a little bit, and we're going to sit here and let you sit in the chair. Check your mic. I'll check this one.
At any point in time, you need to take a drink of water, please do so.
Our preacher drinks water off their service when he's preaching.
Well, I'm a water drinker, and I will drink the whole time. So I just want to make sure you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, well, is everybody ready to get started? I think we've got our people here. Welcome to Haleyville, Ms. Childress. We are happy to have you with us this morning and hope you enjoyed visiting our campus sites. I know you've spent the morning with me and Mr. Vickery, and I met some of our faculty and staff. I wanted to introduce you to the rest of the board. We have Ms. Donna Jones,
Good morning.
Mr. Boo Houghton,
Good morning.
and Mr. Chad Tidwell.
Good morning, sir.
On behalf of the entire board, we appreciate your interest in our wonderful school district. We think it's a great place, and we think you will too. Today, each of us will rotate turns asking some questions which will help us direct our conversation. Our desire is for this time to provide us and you the opportunity to share ideas and get to know each other better. To get us started, would you take just a few minutes to briefly review your educational and work history?
Sure. Good morning. Is the microphone working? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Again, I'm Amy Childress. I am currently working in Scottsboro City Schools. I'm starting my 30th year of education over a period including public school and private school. So 25 years has been dedicated to public school in Alabama. I was the current superintendent of Scottsboro City Schools for the past, I'm starting my 5th year. And prior to that, I was assistant superintendent in Scottsboro City since 2016. I moved into the school district from Marshall County schools, where I transferred from high school principal and athletic director. I was principal of Asbury High School in Marshall County for 7 years. Prior to that, I have experience in the roles of assistant principal. I was a literacy coach in the K-3 realm. Also, this is aging me a little bit, but I was one of the first secondary coaches from the Alabama State Department of Education. It's called RE-PAL. Again, one of 14 of those, so I had the great pleasure of visiting Alabama schools, many districts across the state, and serving in the literacy coaching strategy for secondary teachers. So prior to that, classroom teacher. I'm an English major, so I also have a degree in elementary education, so I've taught reading most of my career and or English language arts. The majority of my career has been spent in secondary and more middle and high school specific and outside of the coaching realm. I've also, again, aging myself, but when I first started to become an educator, knew I wanted to teach my entire life. I taught my stuffed animals at home, and my parents told me that they knew exactly what kind of teaching style my teachers were, because that's how I taught my stuffed animals, and I used my brother's comic books to do that. So I've always known very early that I would be a teacher, and I'm still a teacher at heart. I'm a proud teacher. But I have just, I guess, educated for that many years, and I'm just a proud supporter of Alabama's public schools, and I consider it a great opportunity to be able to be here today.
Thank you. Education in your bones, it sounds like.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll get started with our questions that you were all able to receive. What do you see as the role of the superintendent as it relates to employee groups, students, and the community?
Well, I think that that the role of the superintendent is one that is the bridge. I think it is my role as superintendent to bring all of those groups together to work toward a common mission and vision of the school system. I believe that as far as employee groups, it is my responsibility as superintendent to create and foster a culture of respect and of trust, and to empower employee groups so that they can support our kids. With our student groups, I believe it is my responsibility to ensure equitable access to all students so that they have the rigorous curriculum they need so that they can be the most productive that they can be following high school, choosing whatever path they so choose once they graduate. So I believe that is the focus with students, obviously outside of safety being our first priority with everything. And then with the community, I see myself, or the superintendent's role, as one of being the ambassador of the school system, one who works to build and strengthen on the partnerships that are already existing. And I see that those partnerships are very strong here. But I feel like that is just an opportunity to continue to build and to look for resources within the local community and the greater community so that we can continue to build on the mission and vision of the school system. I believe it is my job to empower everyone to come together and work collectively for the purpose of students, which is why we're all here in the first place.
Exactly. And the second part of that question that I didn't read was, how would you characterize your relationships with employee groups in your current position?
You know, I don't ask people, I don't think it's my business to know what people think about me, but I am a collaborator at heart. I don't like to make decisions without input from many stakeholder groups. So I try to be professional in all of my endeavors, no matter who I'm speaking with. It doesn't matter if it is, it doesn't matter who it is, just be professional. I think that I have good working relationships. I've been able to maintain a strong relationship in Scottsboro City Schools. I'm not from Scottsboro. Again, I was starting my 10th year in the system. And prior to that, I spent 17 years in Marshall County Schools. So I feel like in those opportunities, I just feel like I've been able to build up solid, strong relationships based on professionalism and the way you treat people. It ultimately tells everything about who you are and what your character is.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think you and I are on the same page as far as being educators, and public education is a big priority for me too. And my question is, we have 5 quality finalists for this position. As we select a new superintendent for Haleyville City Schools, what are the top 3 strengths or attributes, the top 3, that you believe you bring to the table that our district could benefit from?
There certainly are some great candidates who have been selected. I think that I could bring some things to the table that would be helpful. First of all, I'm a visionary. I think that I do a strong job of connecting the board's vision, the board's direction and expectations. I believe in my current responsibilities. I've done a great job of putting that into a strategic plan and helping focus, you know, what it is we want to see. What is that outcome? So I think I can definitely break that down into action steps that are attainable for our faculty and staff and the 3 stakeholder groups that we just prior spoke about. I also think that I am very personally committed to excellence in education. I take accountability very strongly. I am going to be somebody who is going to be accountable for everything. I understand the role of the superintendent. I understand what that accountability looks like. I have high expectations not only of myself, but everyone around me. I believe it takes those high expectations and accountability to make sure that we're all doing what our job descriptions say we're doing, so that we can be accountable to the public for the public funds that we're responsible for spending and the outcomes that we're responsible for. We're responsible for our greatest resource, which is our students. So I don't take that charge lightly. And also, I think I bring to the table a great work ethic. I'm a strong worker. I'm a hard worker. I'm not somebody that's going to sit in an office all day. I want to be out and about. I want to be a participant. As I told you, I'm a teacher at heart, so I love going and visiting schools and being a participant in what is going on inside the schools, because I feel like that is the only way that you're going to know what's happening and know, for me to communicate to you as a board, here's what I think we need to do to improve. I need to be a part of what's happening. So, and I think that also brings buy-in and trust to the people that I'm working with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Need a drink of water?
Oh, yes, sir. That'd be great.
All right, so my question is, describe your decision-making style and give a few examples of strategies that you have used in different situations.
Okay. As I mentioned, you're going to hear the word collaborative quite a bit from me, because I'm a collaborator at heart. I believe that we are much stronger than me. I believe in the we mentality. So decision making, I think there's different kinds of decisions that have to be made when you're sitting in this particular chair, but I feel like the collaborative approach is the best way. And I'll give you an example of that particular style. Let's say that we're adopting a new curriculum. Well, I feel like we need those people present at the table who have the most skills and experience that work with curriculum. I would want to look at teachers, those people that are actually going to implement. I think for so long we've left teachers' voices out of what we're doing, not only at, I wouldn't say the local level, but I would go above that. So I feel like we need to bring that respect back to where they can have say in decision making. I believe that we need those instructional specialists. We need administrators at the table, but we also need our partners from within the community to be a part, because we want to make sure that before we're putting something in front of the board members, you, for your approval, then we need to have done our background check and our homework in making sure we have those people and that the community agrees with what we're trying to implement. So that is one example of how I would look at decision making. I think another piece to that is also there's some decisive decisions that have to be made. One example of that would be weather's a great one. Because you can't make those decisions with getting groups together and doing those types of things. You certainly have to reach out for information. But at some point when you're looking at the weather and you have a decision to make, then ultimately you're not going to have the same timeline as you're going to have necessarily with the example I just used. So I think that there are some decisions that have to be decisive, but for the most part, I would want people to have input, and not just within the school district. Again, let's bring in our regional partners. One example I saw of that this morning was at the elementary school. AMSTY was here. They were working with coaches, and again, you would want those people when you're talking about that when you're talking about collaboration, you want to bring those people in, because those are the experts, and we want expert opinions. So.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Next question. With funding tight, teachers, administrators, and support staff are taking on more and more responsibilities. What would you do and say to keep them encouraged and to keep their morale up?
Well, I think morale has definitely been something that every superintendent has been concerned with, particularly since COVID. We are asking everybody at every level to perform more and more responsibilities within their job description. Things like that bullet that's in the job description that says other duties as assigned, we keep adding to those duties. And so I think there's the first thing being let's empower our faculty and staff. Let's commend them for the great job that they do. But to be able to commend them, you have to be present to see what it is they're doing. And so that's kind of what I was speaking of about getting out and about into the schools. You have to recognize all of the things that's going on. There's not one person that I know that doesn't appreciate being told, thank you. And that goes a lot farther than we sometimes think. That's from feedback from my own staff and my own experience as superintendent. Sending a personalized card for their birthdays. I will give you examples of just giving faculty, how is it, what are things that would make you feel heard and seen? And some of those things were staff recognition. So we changed what we were recognizing and how we were recognizing it. We went from recognitions at board meetings, which are great, and definitely I'm happy to do that as a superintendent. I certainly want to get people recognized for the great work they're doing, but some employees pointed out, we don't necessarily get to come to all of the board meetings. We'd like you to do that maybe an in-service day when we're all together so we could be recognized by our peers. It's a great idea and a quick fix. And so just a couple of those changes has made a huge difference. I think everybody likes to be told what a great job they're doing, and everybody likes to be recognized with a little, it could be little snacks, it could be just anything. Putting it on social media so that there's a picture to say thank you for what we're doing. I think those are all great ways to show how we respect and regard our employees.
Thank you.
What do you see as the role of the superintendent as it relates to the school board?
So I think the role of the superintendent in relation to the school board is one of what I believe is partner. I think it is the school board's responsibility to set the governance for the school district and to determine the direction the district is going. And I feel, and the expectations that they have, not only for the superintendent, but for the school itself, the district itself. I feel like the role of the superintendent then is to create an action plan with steps and SMART goals built in on how we're going to reach what the board's expectations and governance that have been set. I feel like it is my responsibility to be accountable to meeting those goals and to be able to report to you as a board of the progress of meeting those at certain benchmarks that you as a board might say in advance, here's what we want you to achieve, and we want you to break that down and give us a timeline. I think those are very attainable goals, and they should be. Again, the superintendent should be held accountable to meeting those and having a way of getting there, being able to provide you with that information at your request.
You find yourself in a respectful disagreement with a board member on a specific issue. How would you proceed?
Well, I think the key word there is respectful. I don't know that there's ever been, there's never a situation where everybody's going to agree on everything. And so I think that respect is the first thing that we have to do. My first thing would be, how was my communication? I would want to sit down with that board member and say, please share with me and let me listen to you to make sure that I communicated. If it was something that I had communicated, did I communicate that effectively? So that I could listen for, has there been something that I missed? Is there a way that I could maybe explain in a different way? So are we on the same page, but maybe there was a communication breakdown? That would be my first just thought about it. But if that is not the case, then I have to ultimately, as superintendent, realize that the board is the governing authority of the district. I'm going to be respectful of that. I'm still going to share what my professional judgment is. I'm going to hope that we can find some common ground But at the end of the day, I would love to maintain that positive, respectful, professional relationship. So I'm always going to be respectful and mindful of everybody's perspectives. And I certainly don't think everybody's going to see the same way as me or any one person.
I've always heard if someone agrees with everything you say, then you need to find somebody else to bounce your idea
There's a
off.
problem.
If they're a yes person.
Yes.
Okay, to what degree do you believe responsibility should be delegated to principals, and how would you hold them accountable for accomplishing those responsibilities?
Well, I think that principals are charged in their building as the instructional leader of the building. They are responsible for the school culture within their building. So that means everything that goes on in their building, I think that the principal assumes that accountability. And having been a principal, I definitely respect the authority of my supervisors. I don't have any problem with that, but I feel like the principal needs autonomy to lead his or her school. I see the superintendent's role as being someone who provides those resources as to an extent possible that the principal needs to move his or her building forward. Let me empower you so that you can do the things you need to do within your building. I also feel like as a superintendent, I would need to be a part of what is going on in the building, like brief me, share some data points. I want to be inside the building. Just being that active participant within the building, but ultimately I believe that responsibility lies within that principal. Principals work on contracts now, and I feel like how do you, if my role as the superintendent is to evaluate a principal, if I don't give that principal the autonomy to do his or her job, then how do I evaluate and recommend you as a board whether or not they need to have a contract renewal? So I feel like we're selecting people who have that skill set and those abilities, and we need to provide them the support that they need, whether that be professional development, whatever it needs to be, but we need to provide that support to empower them to do their job.
Well, this is kind of a follow-up from that, and something you said kind of popped this in my head. And anyway, we have a fantastic admin team here. And, you probably are familiar with that. And how would you go about, making that happen again or keeping that on the right track? And give me some ideas about your admin team that you probably have had too.
Yes, first of all, I think empowering and not micromanaging there's definitely a difference. I think people are going to want to be in the job that they're in if they feel like they've been empowered and not micromanaged. Having said that, I think there's definitely, when you're looking at someone, if I were the candidate that you select to be superintendent, there's going to have to be a transition or a time to allow us to get to know each other, so to speak. But as far as speaking from the superintendent perspective, I had to hire people in the central office. I had to hire principals in schools, and I wanted to, again, collaborate, give people an opportunity to have input and feedback on that, but just allowing them to feel comfortable, build up that trust with them, and tell me what it is you need so that you can become successful. Ultimately, we're all pulling on the same side of the rope. We're all going for the same expectations, but I feel like being there, being supportive, offering the support that they need. There is a balance, and I feel like you have to find that balance, but I feel like there is also a perfect candidate for each role, and having the people who are on the right seats on that bus is so critically important. What I've seen this morning is a great administrative staff. There's a great staff here, but we're speaking about principals specifically. And when you view the state report card that I've taken a look at, which is public data, that speaks for itself. Those gains are being made. The growth is there. There's always room for improvement, but I feel like those relationships are established. You could tell that The principals and assistant principals have a great respectful camaraderie between each other, and that's ultimately what you're working for, because when you have that foundation already laid, then it's simple to continue to add and build to those layers that already exist.
That's it. High performance by students and accountability are priorities for us. How would you assess the current student performance and teacher effectiveness in our school system?
So those are great qualities and great aspirations to have. So high quality performance for students. You know, I've done just a little bit of that this morning by walking through the buildings. I believe that you can take quantitative data, and I believe you can take qualitative data, and you can figure that out. The quantitative piece would be, well, let me see all the standardized data that we have surrounding our students, whether that be ACAP assessments, whether that be ACT. I would want to see academic data. I want to see our AP performance. I would want to see graduation rates, college and career readiness. I would want to see our attendance, truancy rates. Those are all that quantitative data, but qualitatively, you're looking to see what does it look like when you go into a classroom. I want to see what things are going on. I want to see what type of work students are doing. I want to see what type of depth of knowledge is in the work that's there. I want to see student work samples. All of those things begin to tell a story along with teacher feedback and teacher input. So I think those are things I would look for to determine where we are with our level of effectiveness from teachers.
Take a drink of water.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. Based on what you know and have seen today of our school system, what do you think is the greatest potential for improvement?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to commend you as board members and everyone who is in here as, whether it be staff or community stakeholders. You have a great school system, and just looking at that public data says that. But what I've seen here, it's clear that there is a strong connection between employees to students. The employees know the students. You can tell they know them well. You can tell you know them well. And I saw that walking through and visiting the campuses today. I think it's evident that so many great things are going on. I love to see some of the work that was happening in the classrooms. Actually had an opportunity to see students doing some presentations, and so I love that. So I think, you know, you continue to build on what's already here. I think one of the big things that is that we're seeing in regards to the Alabama Literacy Act and the numeracy bill, we're seeing a lot of focus that has been happening in our elementary schools, but we're seeing that in our data, and that's not just one particular school district. I believe that is multiple districts and across the state. I think one area to continue to grow on is that transition from elementary and intermediate into the secondary schools. I think there's room for growth. I think we look at that through what our PST process currently is and how we can grow on that. Ultimately, I think our goal is to address the needs of kids, whether that be academic needs, whether that be behavioral needs, whether that be social and emotional and wellness needs. So if we're doing that, that PST process is going to help us continue to build and identify those subgroups and how we can continue to support those, all the learner types that we're trying to move. So, but I think the foundation is very solid and very strong.
Thanks.
Describe your experience in developing, implementing, and evaluating curriculums and instructional programs to raise student achievement, and what steps would you take to create a culture of high expectations for those you are charged to lead?
Developing, implementing, and evaluating a curriculum. Well, my background centers around curriculum and instruction. As I mentioned when we first started the interview, I was a curriculum director for K-12 as an assistant superintendent. I have also served in roles of instructional specialist for both K-3 and also in 412 positions. So I've spent most of the cornerstone of my professional tenure working on curriculum and how we improve the curriculum. So I think that development looks like, again, that collaboration. We want to bring the people to the table to help us. Teachers, I need the teacher who's in the trenches doing the work, providing the instruction for the standards to be a part of the conversation, to develop. Not only that, we have so many differing learners and learner types in each classroom now that we need those particular teachers. That looks like a collaborative effort with special education teachers. It looks like maybe the EL teacher, those specialists again. We want to bring in our local partners as well as some of our regional partners to work on the development of a curriculum. And then we want to make sure that that curriculum that we're trying to implement or start, does it align to the state course of study that we are tasked with teaching? And not only does it align, but does it support board approved materials that we already have in place? So those are the first things I would want to look at. When we begin to implement, then we're going to see what types of professional development are needed. Again, we want to support every certified teacher, and we have many classroom instructional paraprofessionals who are helping teachers to improve academic achievement, and we depend on those people. So we need to have a way and a means of developing their skills to help them as well. So I think those are the components when we're implementing. We also want to talk about how we're going to collect data that drives the instruction. So how are we going to collect this, and what does that look like that we use all the way through implementation. And then obviously when we evaluate, we want to take a look at those benchmarking measures. We want to take a look at the data. We want to see what trends we're trending in the direction that we're wanting to go. And if we have some shortcomings, we want to see from feedback how we could do a better job with that implementation. But again, it takes the collaborative effort to be able to do those things and do it effectively.
Okay. How would you approach the budget process to ensure success during financially challenging times as it relates specifically to programs like, but not limited to, special ed, federal programs, career tech?
Well, I think for me, what has been helpful throughout my tenure as superintendent and prior, I was director of curriculum and instruction, but also federal programs. So I have a strong understanding of those federal funds. But as we're going through the budget process, it is an ongoing process. You're probably getting to the point now where your budget's already been approved for the year. You've already been through that budgeting process, but I believe it is an ongoing process throughout the year. I believe it works and stems from a needs assessment that has been conducted and identifies the areas of priorities that we need to move students and gain that academic achievement that we're looking for. So I believe if we're looking at best practices for budgeting, I believe that looks like CSFO and directors working monthly to review budgets. And it's one of those things where you put the meeting down because, you can't hardly find time when you're looking for it down during the middle of the year. But if you already have those meeting times scheduled to meet, then it's easy to say, hey, this month I really don't have a lot of questions, or I really don't have a lot of things that we need to discuss. It's easy to take a meeting off the table rather than add it to. But I feel like those meetings have helped Scottsboro City Schools grow our finances tremendously. In 2021, when I became superintendent, we were looking at we were right at the 2-month reserve, And currently, right now, we're sitting at over 5 months reserve, and that has been part of those best practices and processes. I think when you're looking at federal funds, the big thing you have to follow is the parameters that surround those funds. So that drives everything. What are their purposes? How can you use those monies? And how can we then braid some of these funds to address the priorities that the needs assessment determines? And then how do we combine that using local funds without supplanting those funds? But I do feel like that's an ongoing process, and I feel like we have a much better handle on it if we keep doing that monthly rather than trying to wait until we're in the budget window. At least that's been my experience.
Okay. When a new superintendent is hired, you want to make the transition as smooth as possible for everyone. How would you help both the educational community and the community at large adjust to the new governing style that would come with the leadership of you as our new superintendent?
Well, I think that this is a great time that you've selected for this process, because as we just talked about the budget, that's probably been approved or very close to being approved for the year. So you have the budget process done. That means each department, each school has the budgeted funds ready to go. And so I do think that you want to build on what already exists, that are those great things that are in place. It would be my challenge for the first 90 days, if I were to be the next superintendent, I would want to spend that on what I would consider a listening tour. I feel like I need to do more listening, and with those things already done, like the budget process, that gives you a little more time then to actually meet with staff and get to have a better understanding of the district, of the budget processes, of the needs. So I would want to have an opportunity for people to approach me. I would want to present myself as approachable and very credible for what the work I'm doing. But I think just keeping things the way they are, unless there is something that is absolutely pressing, that is priority, that needs to be addressed, I wouldn't want to come in and make any changes unless it was absolutely priority. And I haven't seen, and I don't know if there is anything that would be a priority that would have to be completed within that first 90 days. But I do feel like there has to be that time when you allow people to simply just get to know who you are. And that's not only faculty and staff, that's the community. I think from the community standpoint, I would need, as superintendent, to discover what the board's expectations of me are for communicating. You may have a way that you would like that communication process to look. I have a way that I've been doing things, but you may want a specific process in place. So that would be my first question is, how do you want to do that? But I feel like the community needs to know information. I feel like that whether that's in a newsletter that goes out through our social media channel, maybe that's once a month. I would be happy to work around that. But I feel like the stakeholders need to know how you're going to operate things rather than wait till there's a problem to go, I should probably let people know, because at that point it's already past time. So I think being a great communicator is vital to this role, and to explain, here's what you can expect, here's when you can expect getting these newsletters, or we're going to use our social media platforms to get information out. I think that seems to be the most common way and the most effective way to do that in systems now. But so I think just basically trying to keep things the same. For me, unless there was something absolutely pressing, I'm here to listen and learn and get to know and build on what's already existing. I would want to reach out. I would want to just start working with our local partners, community partners right away, as well as the school system, and just continue to build on those relationships.
So based on what you already know, how do you think you and your family will adjust and fit in with both our school community and our community at large?
Well, I think you probably need to know my family before I could answer that question. So I had the opportunity to speak with 2 of the board members this morning about that, but I have, my husband and I have a blended marriage. We have a daughter that my husband had when we got married, and I have 3 children that are my own biological children. They are all married and or grown and living on their own, with the exception of my youngest, my baby, who's 19 and is attending the University of Alabama in Huntsville. So I am an empty nester, and my youngest son, who would be in college, would be the one who would be coming home, so to speak. But my children live in Madison and Huntsville area, so he makes his way to their house rather than mine so far. So it is my husband and me. We understand, as I mentioned, I am not from Scottsboro, so we moved to Scottsboro. And my family, my children are used to being a teacher's mom, a principal's mom, a central office director's mom, superintendent's mom. They know education, and they know what I am committed to, not only in my personal life, but professionally. So they are very supportive. I would look as it an opportunity to come in, get to know, and embed myself, and my husband will be the same way. We would want to become not only a part of the school system as far as my professional obligation, but we would want to become active parts of the community. So that's where we are. That's what we do now, and that's what I would want to continue to do.
Ready?
Yes.
How do you plan to communicate with the public on matters of school concern? And how do you plan to deal with an individual parent who is upset over their child's grade, punishment, or athletic problem?
Well, as I mentioned earlier with communicating with the public, I think it's important to set that tone early. I would want some direction from the board if I would be the next superintendent on if you have a preference or how you would like things to be done. But I certainly have a process that I do. I send out those newsletters. We communicate regularly. We have a platform, Parent Square. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or if you're using that at all, but that is one piece of technology that I feel like has helped and improved Scottsboro City Schools more than anything, because everybody's using that same platform. It's great to communicate with parents. But transparency is one. Certainly, I don't know that you can be transparent enough in this role. I think getting information out there often, I would want to communicate early and often to try to keep you from having to ask me, hey, could you get this out? Because there's people that are asking about it. Obviously, they know you, they're going to reach out to you, but I would like to prevent some of those problems by being a good communicator and hopefully sharing information and keeping information out there. You know, one of the things that I have learned throughout my tenure as superintendent and also as principal is if you don't tell your story, somebody will. And I think there's so many more great things going on in our schools across Alabama than sometimes what we tell. And sometimes we only hear those negative things, but I think we have way more positive than negative to report. So I think it's important to focus on all of the accolades and accomplishments and achievements that's going on within our school. And it happens every single day. So I think that communication piece is very important and vital to parents feeling comfortable sending babies to school and to staff being comfortable with what's going on. For example, the staff, in my opinion, should know what we're doing regularly and should be updated and not have to read that and go, oh, well, I didn't know we were doing this. This just went out to parents. I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that everybody's communicated well and has a complete understanding of what's going on. And how I build that newsletter or information that we send out is by working with our staff to do that. So, you know, I don't want surprises. We want to make sure that everybody's informed.
Thanks.
think one of the things with staff and teachers and principals that's important is how would you deal with an individual that was coming directly to you?
Thank you, I failed to mention that. So I want to be approachable to anyone who would like to speak to me. I don't think it shouldn't be too much trouble for me to speak with someone. So I'm going to be available. However, I'm happy to explain policy. I'm happy to explain procedures to any parent at any time. But the situation of we've got a parent who's upset about a grade or maybe an athletic situation or circumstances of those nature, I feel like there is a chain of command that we would follow. So while I would not turn any parent away to speak to them, I would never be unprofessional to anyone. We may have to redirect and say, we need to be at the school level. This might be something, have you spoken with your child's teacher? Have you spoken to the JV coach? Have you spoken to the assistant coach? That's that process that I would like to follow, because I do believe that chain of command is so important. And quite frankly, if someone came to me and had an issue, let's say it's athletic, I might not have been informed, so there is no way I could answer specifically to a parent's concern without involving those people.
Give us your opinion on the role of technology and the use of technology-driven instructional programs in the classroom. Please include the role of artificial intelligence in your response. If applicable to you, please describe a time when you have led the implementation of new technology in your current district.
Sure. So technology plays a vital role, and it can certainly enhance each student's instructional journey. But that being said, there has to be a way that we go about it and what we use and how we're doing that. As far as my own personal experience, I, as assistant superintendent of curriculum, I go back to COVID and I think about how technology changed in March of 2020. And my superintendent at the time came to me and said, okay, Ms. Childress, how are we addressing this when we bring everybody back on campus? What is that going to look like? And I said, that's a great question. I'm going to have to work on this for a minute. And so we started looking at all of the technology platforms that were available to use. And that's when I realized how critical the tech department actually is. And we actually used some ESSER funds to bring in a technology integration specialist, because when you're on those calls with people and you're trying to bring in those platforms, they ask you very specific questions related to IT itself, to the infrastructure that you currently have and things of that nature. And I realized, hey, I'm the curriculum person. I don't know these things. I'm going to need somebody else. So I think we really saw then how relevant and how important technology is in our classrooms. So for me, examples would be becoming a one-to-one device school system. We did not have that. We used title funds to be able to be one-to-one within our elementary schools, but we didn't have it at that point for secondary. And we were all challenged with how are we going to work through these platforms. But again, teacher input, teacher professional development. We had to learn how to use Zoom or Teams or those types of virtual learning platforms then, and we've actually grown and learned from those. We know how valuable those programs are, but those programs will never replace the teacher and the content and what the teacher's relationship and role is for student and academic achievement, but we know that they can enhance it. Relative to AI, I do know this is something that is becoming more and more prevalent, not only use in schools, but everybody looks to AI. So I think you have to have that board policy I noticed you already have a board policy in place for AI, and I feel like it does have its place. I feel like there's a partnership obligation. I'll speak specifically to secondary because I saw this morning when we were touring the classrooms. We were in a specific classroom where part of the project was to use AI to create a presentation. And so I love the parameters that were set there, but there were parameters. And so I think our teachers, I would say teachers have been discussing, it's okay. I think teachers have been discussing to, identify what are we allowing. I hope those collaborative conversations have been going on, but to say that, okay, we're not going to use that, that's only going to create more interest. And our children are digital. They probably know more than what I know about it. So I think, just having that conversation. If I'm in the high school, I would want our teachers to talk to our community college professors and our colleges. Where are our kids going to college? And let's talk to those professors and see what they're going to be using in terms of AI to help guide so that they're more prepared when those college-bound kids get there. So that would be a suggestion that I have, and that actually may already be happening for all I know. But I think that we have to recognize AI and its importance. And there's great things it can do for us. On the administrative side and in the classroom as well. So, but I do understand the role of technology, and I think that to say that technology is not important is wrong, but I do think that having those parameters are critical to success of students.
We had a couple of questions that we've asked earlier. The one about describing your experience in developing, implementing, and evaluating curriculum and instructional programs. How would you do that to raise student achievement? You talked a good bit about that. Is there anything you want to reiterate on that?
Well, I think using data, especially longitudinally, over a period of time where you're breaking down those student groups that we're serving, I think that data is going to help us a lot with addressing the needs, because when I'm looking at data, if I'm presenting to you as a board, here's our growth, well, that growth is showing all students. But if I drill down, how are gifted students, which is challenging to move that gifted student because they're already performing at high levels, so how am I going to get them to perform higher levels? So if I'm looking at special education students, we want to look at exceptionalities and say, how are we, moving those students? What kinds of things do we have in place? So I think that drilling down and getting specific to the student groups we serve is definitely how we move and improve student achievement.
Another question we ask is, and this is interesting to all of us, I'm sure, as far as public education is concerned. Our legislators that we usually have a forum every year here, sponsored by the 710 Club, and we have good rapport with our legislators. Anyway, some of the bills that have recently been passed, the school choice, the RAISE Act, and of course, we're all kind of holding our breath about what happens to our educational trust fund as the funds start going down. So the question is in regards to that, how would you prioritize additions or cuts to the budget, which, very likely could fluctuate especially concerning these acts that have recently come up in our legislation?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think it's great that you have the relationship already formed with the state legislators in the area, and I think it's great that they're willing to bend an ear and listen to concerns. I'm very familiar with that legislative process and speaking up throughout that process. But I think when we start talking about funds, as I went back and talked about the budgeting question a minute ago, I think that we have to start, that's why I like that month-to-month process. And what I would like to look at and have directors look at within their programs is, here is this budget that you're able to provide now, but what does our budgets look like? We need almost a secondary budget for what does this look like when or if these funds are cut through legislative means by which we, don't have any control over. So I would want to already start working on what are we going to do, because then when we see those shortfalls, those are those talking points that you bring up in front of the legislative team and say, here, how are we going to find funds for X, Y, Z, whatever those things are. Many schools are using those supplemental funds, such as the advancement of technology funds that the state provides, and we already know that legislation may or may not provide those funds, and many school systems use those things to pay things such as insurance, maybe some school safety things. Well, we're going to continue to have insurance, we're going to have needs or buses being bought or things like that. Where is that going to come from? And those are the questions that we start tasking our directors with. Okay, let's go ahead and create a list of concerns so that we can figure out where will this money come from if we don't have it, but rather than that, let's get ahead of that and let's be ready in the legislative session to address those things so that hopefully they can take those things into account, and maybe other systems have the same problems so that it becomes a common recurrence when they're speaking throughout the session.
Thank you. Plan ahead.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Will
Thank
I ask another question real quick? Thought you were giving me that.
No, I
Did we
thought
ask that one?
you were the next
Yeah.
one. No, you were the next one that you
Oh, I
asked
got
the
you.
same question. That's why I was looking at you.
So really, my question to you is this:
Yes, sir.
why? Why do you want to come here? What's your heartfelt answer to that question? Why little old Haleyville?
I love a small town. I love an opportunity to use the skill set that I have. That same question was asked to me about coming to Scottsboro after serving in a district for 17 years. And my answer is I always want to continue to learn and grow, and I love working with like-minded people who want to continue to improve and better themselves. And that's what I've heard continuously over and over as I've been on the visit this morning. It just affirms this is exactly aligned with what I want to do and why I want to do it. So I just want to be able to be a part of something that's as great as this. And I don't see a small town or a little old Haleyville as something. I mean, we are changing and impacting lives and leadership forever. And I have a great, it's a calling, I feel. And I feel like I'm called to be the best that I can and do the work. And so, why not?
What else? Anybody want to?
Sure. Yeah, I'm good.
One last thing.
Yes, sir.
No, maybe not the last thing for me.
Okay.
So we have a wonderful local paper that still prints and a local radio station.
Yes.
How comfortable are you communicating with those two entities?
Well, truthfully, 5 years ago, I would have been terrified. Today, after having served in the role of superintendent, I understand, I welcome it. The only reservation that I would have would be if you asked me to sing something on those. But I'm happy to, I believe that it's my responsibility to share our story if I'm your superintendent, and to be able to get out there. It's not something that I would tell you, oh, I'm absolutely comfortable. This is, I should have gone into this and studied it. But I understand why, and I get it. And so I feel like each time I feel like, okay, I can do this. I know the first time I actually went live on the news, I thought, I may throw up. But after that, it became very, it's just a part of what your expectations are.
And with that being said, it is a part of our town that has been here long before we had Facebook that can give you all kinds of slanted misinformation or good information. We're all Facebook users, and if husbands don't, sometimes they look at their wives' Facebook page.
And I use it to keep up with all my former students. I've taught over 3,500 kids in this
Oh,
town.
I love it. I love it.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I would just thank you for the opportunity to come here and sit in front of you and your consideration to even allow me to take part in this today. I would consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to move to this beautiful town and have this opportunity. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the hospitality of everybody who's not only in this room, I don't know who's in here, but just everybody's been so kind and welcoming, and that just tells me that it's a great place to be. The kids were absolutely fantastic today. I know it's a great place to live and work and play. So I would love to have the opportunity, and I thank you for your consideration.
It's genuine, and thank you for coming.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will go to a meet and greet if we get a little bit more
Yes, sir.
time.
Still drinking my water.
Yes, ma'am.
And so in closing, Ms. Childress, thank you again for your interest in our school system. When we adjourn today, like you said, we're going to the conference room. We will be interviewing through this Thursday. Moving forward, someone from the board will be in touch with the following steps. With the next
And
steps.
we're going to have meet and greet.
That sounds great, thank you. I don't have to take this with me, or?
No,
The
no.